I'm very good. Yeah, very
You're
good.
all right. You're all right.
Yeah.
Pandemic, we're somewhere towards the end, hopefully.
Where it's the it may not be the end of the beginning, or but it's the beginning of the end, or I don't know, whatever that was, that quote that was said about all that stuff. We're somewhere, and it's easing, and we can get out. And soon, I hope we'll be able to sing.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm so gutted. It's lovely to be able to watch the football and everything. And I'm loving seeing people be a bit more like, normal interaction and everything. But it is gutting when you can't sing at church or anything.
Oh, it is, and it just doesn't feel quite right. But you're beginning to see more people's face covering moving a bit when other people are singing, and you think, we know what
Yeah,
you're doing.
we know you're not as sly as you think you are. I thought it would be good because a lot of people, when they hear about a bishop, they don't know what to expect, or if they think they know what to expect. I had someone once, when you were coming with me to a meeting, I had someone once say to me afterwards, he's not wearing the bishop costume. And, and
Excellent.
it was one of them moments where I was like, to me, I didn't bat an eyelid because I was like, knew that you wouldn't. But like, I think when someone hears, oh, the bishop's going to come and join us at this thing, they think, oh, it's like I've got to behave in a certain way, and like I've got to be a certain type of person and all this sort of thing. And just when you meet you, you're just so authentic and real and genuine and just a really lovely person. But also you have such a heart for Jesus. And
Mm.
that is what being a part of what being a bishop is.
Yeah, but I think people have an image, don't they? They have an idea of what a bishop is. It was quite funny. We had the ordinations last week. I love ordinations. I love ordinations because you're celebrating an amazing story in each of the lives of the ordinands.
Yeah.
But I love them as well because a number of people who come to the ordinations don't normally come to church. They've come because they're family or friends of those being ordained. And I mean, let's face it, it's a pretty hardcore service to come to. I mean, it's not like a 40-minute all-age worship thing. I mean, this is like 2 hours full on, loads of stuff going on, including communion and all the rest of it. I mean, if there is a service that is designed to make non-church people feel slightly awkward, it's probably an ordination. But the lovely thing is that, I mean, I always say a bit at the start of the service to especially welcome those who don't normally come to church, and because it's me, there'll always be a little bit of humour in it and things like that as well. And at the end, somebody said to me last Saturday, they said, "You're not a very bishopy bishop, are you?" And I thought, actually, that probably, if I wanted a kind of, like the reviews you get at the back of a book or something, he's not a
Yeah.
very bishopy bishop, would do me. I think that would be all right.
You ever write your autobiography, that can be the like tagline.
That's
Not
it.
a
Not a
very
very
bishop.
bishopy bishop. I think there are a lot of bishops who are, it's more about the kind of image we have of bishops. And then when we meet them in the flesh, we realize they're different. I remember back when I was going through the process leading up to ordination. So I was going through selection, and I had to meet the Bishop of Tewkesbury because I was ordained through the Diocese of Gloucester.
Yeah.
And so I got the train from London and met this, and I thought, what on earth do you talk to a bishop about? You know? And I thought he's going to give me a lift in his car back to his house, and that's kind of slightly awkward because you're kind of stuck there. And if he starts talking about very church, because I'm also not very churchy, I'm not very bishopy, but I'm also not very churchy.
Mm.
So I was really quite concerned as to what it would be like. And the first question he asked me was whether Gloucester would beat Bath in the rugby that afternoon. And I thought, we're on good ground here. We can cope with this,
Yeah.
So I think a lot of bishops are not very bishopy, actually.
No, I think it's a stereotype for sure. For sure. I
Yeah,
think you find that with. Go on, go
there
on.
were bishopy bishops at one time, though.
Oh
I did
yeah.
a funeral with a very famous old bishop. You'll look him up afterwards. An extraordinary man called Mervyn Stockwood.
Mm-hmm.
He was terrifying. I mean, he was like royalty when it comes to bishops, and kind of, assumed that role like it was royalty. And he was extraordinary. And I remember there was this elderly canon who was at this funeral. Me as a kind of curate who knew nothing, and this towering figure of Mervyn Stockwood, who was quite a formidable person.
Yeah.
And the undertakers, who were the worst company of undertakers. I mean, they were the best undertakers, but they would always think that their job was to make me laugh,
Oh,
which is just, I mean, they were great guys and really good humor. But there was this one moment where this doddery old canon goes like shooting off into the churchyard, and I'm sort of next in line, and then there's a bishop behind, and then the coffin and everything leading out the way, and I'm trying to think, well, I don't want to have to keep up with the doddery old canon who's practically disappeared from view at this point, because there's all the procession still forming behind me, but then there's Mervyn Stockwood, and then this voice booms out, and I think everybody in Gloucestershire heard it. Go slower. And this is just terrifying. And ever since then, whenever I was doing a funeral with this bunch of undertakers, if there was a quiet moment before family arrived, I mean, when the family were there, they were always very well behaved, actually. But they would always, the old Albert would always go slower.
One of them things that stuck.
Oh dear. But yeah, he was a proper bishop. He was a bishopy bishop.
Yeah, a bishopy bishop. He was a bishopy bishop. Because obviously, being a bishop, you are also you see, this is me showing you somehow.
Oh, you've been learning something, have you? Have you been reading some books?
I'm absorbing stuff at Vicar School. I promise. I'm trying my best. But you're also a layperson, a deacon, a vicar, a priest, and you're a bishop. So you're all of those things, which actually, like, when you say all those things, it feels quite overwhelming. But how do you perceive your role? How do you view the role of a bishop in relation to all those other things, like to being a layperson, a deacon, a priest? Because they're not just part of a job process. There's a lot more to each of those parts. What do you take from each?
Gosh, that's quite a long. You're not doing an essay. I'm not writing one of your essays for you, am I? You haven't got this. So starting with the layperson thing. I mean, I kind of don't like the use of the word layperson.
Yeah.
And the reason I don't like it is twofold. One is that if we say, if I said to you, well, I'm a bit of a lay kind of DIY person, you'd think, oh, he's not very good.
Exactly, yeah.
And actually, I don't think that's a really good term in that sense, because of the way it's been understood. But also, it comes from being the people of God. The people of God is the laos of God, and that's where we get the word lay and laity and things. And of course, we're the people of God. I'm part of the people of God. The most important definition that I will hold to is that I'm a child of God. Yeah. And so we're all part of the people of God, whoever we are. So to call some people lay and some people not lay doesn't make sense.
Not at all.
So I'm part of the people of God, certainly. And then there's those funny glasses that when you go to the opticians, I always think actually they never sell those out the front of the shop, but actually they look quite groovy. Those ones with all the kind of multiple lenses, and they switch them all in and stuff like that.
They make you a bit dizzy, though, to be fair.
Well, yeah, but they also get it right eventually, don't they? And
they do.
Oh, this is perfect. Can I just take these? But one of the lenses through which we then see everything is that we're a deacon first. So I am a servant of the servants of God. And actually, that's not just about the fact that, you know, we work hard to make sure that the rest of the stuff goes well, but it's also something about the humility that is at the heart of Christian ministry and Christian service. That's why I take it as a compliment that I'm not a very bishopy bishop. And I do find it really, really difficult when, you know, when there are some that will still kind of treat us as if we're a minor celebrity or something like that. And I'm just a jobbing priest as well. And so I just feel awkward about that kind of thing. So there's a humility that goes with our stuff, a readiness to serve. That's why I love the job. As you know, I'm involved in the Greenbelt Festival, and I'm a stage manager at the Greenbelt Festival, and I love that, because if I do my job really, really well at the Greenbelt Festival, nobody notices me. They'd only notice me if something goes wrong with the sound.
Yep.
So there's, you know, my job is to make the artists, the performers, the people with talent to really shine. And if I do my job well, that, you know, nobody will say, oh, you know, good old Roger. And I think there's something really important about that, because that, for me, that really fulfills that kind of deacon function in me. The priest thing is so important, and for me, one of the outworkings of that is the ministry of intercession. If somebody says, "Will you pray for so and so?" I will pray for them. I have on my box, my little box over there, and I write down on cards the people that I'm going to pray for. So you're in there.
And
I, you know, they go through a rotation, and every time I say morning prayer, I pray for all the clergy that are part of the Episcopal area, and I pray for specific things that are there in the box. So you know, there is something about that you know, being with God, with the people in our heart, that is at the heart of what I do. And then as a bishop, there's a kind of an oversight role. And I love the word oversight because it has two meanings.
Okay.
There's the kind of the supervisory role that we look at, you know, that's where we get the word episcopal from. It's that we look at over the whole thing and keep a kind of broad view of everything that we're connected to. But there's also oversight in the sense that if you miss something, you might say it's an oversight. And actually, I really like that there's a sense in which we are both vigilant to see things, but there's also a kind of a graciousness in what we allow to happen and what we encourage to happen. And so I think all those things combine, not as a kind of like a Russian doll. If you take off the bishop, there's a priest, and if you take off the priest, there's a deacon. If you know, they actually are more like notes in a chord that sound together through the ministry that we exercise.
Also, that whole, how it's like a tapestry of things, that these different callings on your life, they all intertwine, and they all work and move together, and you can't have one without, like, you can't have the bishop, like the bishop role or the priest role, without having the deacon role and the person of God role. And I 100% agree with you as well. I always cringe when I hear the term lay, like the lay people or lay person. There's something about it that makes me feel like, as church, we're always saying about how, we need to be more united and more as a movement of people of God. And yet we sort of, as humans, love this division of like, oh, well, this person's got this responsibility and this person's got this. And if you're not ordained, then you don't have that. And it's kind of like, of course, there's a difference because the expectation on your role is different, but not on who your identity is in Christ. And, you know, your identity is in Jesus. And, you know, that doesn't matter what your role is. You know, we're all part of the church together. So 100%, I totally agree with you. I don't like that whole like divide. It feels like a divide, doesn't it?
It is, and it's not good. it's interesting how certain words are now used to do people down. So lay would, lay is like a negative thing. If I'm a lay something, it sounds like I'm not quite as good as somebody else. And it's a bit like the word amateur as well. We take amateur to be a kind of, does people down. That's a bit amateur. And of course, amateur means that you're actually motivated by your love of it. That's why you do it.
Exactly.
But we've lost that sense of the word. And it's a bit like, youth workers as well. One of the bugbears of my life is people will often ask youth workers when they're going to do proper ministry, when they're going to kind of grow out of being and it just does my head in.
I overheard a conversation once where someone said, is she doing youth ministry when she going forwards for ordination? And this was years ago.
Yeah.
And I was like absolutely adamant I wasn't anyway, but obviously I didn't get involved in the conversation. But it was just that moment of, I'll always remember it. It stuck with me because I thought, hang on, like, my worth isn't determined on whether I'm ordained or not. My worth is determined on, am I listening to what God's saying to me? Am I listening to what God wants me to do in my life? And somehow that has ended up being ordination. And I still don't know what's going on. But at the same time, it's kind of like, if I hadn't been going forward for ordination, if that hadn't been God's call, would my worth have been any different? And no, it wouldn't. But it's interesting how we're made to feel sometimes. Like, once you're in a role in a church, are you going to get promoted up? Like, are you going to work your way up? And that's not what it is at all.
No, and actually, if you look at it, I mean, one of the most beautiful, wonderful people in the world is a guy called Pip Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
And Pip Wilson's been doing youth work all his life, really. Yeah. He's never grown out of it. And I just think, I mean, I love Pip to bits, really. And I just think there's a guy who he's never stopped doing youth work.
No.
And he would take great pride in being referred to as a youth worker. Yeah. And I think we need to hold on to that. We need to say, look, this is what, and similarly, the person who maybe they don't want an upfront ministry, maybe they're, but they do what they do out of love for God, and they do it brilliantly. And we need to celebrate them, not as a kind of, it's nice you've done that, but actually that's just as important for the kingdom of God as the stuff that you and I do.
Yeah.
And as a church, we need to be celebrating all that, really.
Definitely.
If everybody lives out that Romans 12 thing, that they present the whole of themselves as a living sacrifice to God, there's no hierarchy.
No. One of the things that I'd love to see in the church as a whole in future is more unity and more, not necessarily obviously agreeing on everything, but understanding one another and being united in what we actually stand for, like being united in Jesus. And I think there are so many times where that is overlooked and just worries about other things are deemed more important, and actually we shouldn't let go of that focus, that our focus is in Jesus.
And you think about it in the ministry of Jesus. I mean, when the disciples, who were just as human as the rest of us and just as messed up as the rest of us, they're like squabbling as to who's the greatest. And you think, God. And then Jesus just takes a child and stands it in the midst, and then a bit later on, there's some children wanting to get to Jesus, and the disciples stop the children from getting to Jesus. And you kind of think, guys, have you not been paying attention? I mean, Jesus, he's healed somebody's daughter. He's done all these amazing things involving young people, and you get to this stage, and people are trying to exclude young people from Jesus. And he takes these kids, and they were probably street kids. Yeah. These are probably, could well be orphaned, which makes a bit of sense of what Jesus then goes on to do. But these these were not your perfect kids. I mean, there's a tendency in the church sometimes that we want to parade the perfect kids, a bit like some kind of Russell and Bromley advert, you know, and
It's
it just,
horrible.
you know, and actually, there's such an important ministry with young people that perhaps are not as pristine as people might want them to be. And Jesus takes this young person, and the words that's used actually pretty much says he hugs them. That's what he does. But it also is a kind of lifting up, which is what a parent does when they claim a child for their own. So there's a kind of almost like an adoption thing going on there as well. And Jesus being really, really clear that you know, it's to these, to people like this, that the kingdom of God belongs. Yeah. I mean, the disciples must have felt like proper chumps at that point. Yeah. But actually, it's such an important lesson for us, telling people and showing people that God loves them. You know, particularly the beaten and the broken and the lost, and letting them know that God loves them. I can't think of anything more important than that.
It's interesting as well, you're saying about how the disciples must have felt afterwards. I think it should be quite convicting of us as well, in the sense of how we often read about the disciples and think, oh, like typical, like, you know, like, did you, like you said, did you think they'd see what was going on, that you'd think that they'd have like absorbed some of it at some point. But then I realized more and more, I think, how as church and as individuals, we often do the same things. Like, we often repeat their errors and their mistakes in just different ways.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's interesting that we often look at the disciples and think, oh, well, you know, if I was there, I probably wouldn't have done that or whatever. But actually, how true is that? It's interesting, isn't it? How real can we be with ourselves about, hang on, we're very human, just like they're very human. How would we have responded to these things? And especially as well, because this was the first time that they would have had that experience with Jesus. Like, they wouldn't have had those experiences before. Like, we've read them time and time again, or been preached or heard someone speak about them time and time again. But this would have been like the first time that this radical love was shown in the way that it was. It's very interesting. Yeah. I was wondering as well, how did you become a vicar? I know you've told me before, but how did you become a vicar? What happened?
So it was never part of the plan.
Okay, yeah, it never is it? It never is.
In fact, a guy said to me he thought there was more chance of him becoming Pope than me being a vicar,
wow.
which I thought was quite nice. But he had bright orange hair and played bass guitar in a thrash metal band, so I don't think he was really Pope material as well. But dear old Dave, bless him. But actually, I mean, the plan was I was going to be a research scientist.
Uh-huh.
That was what I was going to do. So I love chemistry. Now, most people are kind of completely turned off by chemistry, but chemistry is brilliant. I mean, it's about color and explosions and, you know, and stuff like that. It's just extraordinary to meddle with those kind of things. And I had a brilliant tutor whose photo is actually still above my desk.
That's cool.
Professor Dennis Evans, FRS, extraordinary guy, completely mad. He got his fellowship of the Royal Society while he was still a doctor of chemistry, so they hadn't made him a professor. And then they gave him this professorship because he got the fellowship of the Royal Society. And it was quite funny. He got it for some work around magnetic susceptibility, which is things either gain or lose weight in a magnetic field.
Okay.
And he'd come up with the idea in the pub one night, scribbled it on a beer mat, and then had lost the beer mat. And it took him a few months to get back to where he'd got to that night in the pub with the idea. Oh, wow. But that tells you a lot about Dennis, really. I mean, once he got some money as a professor, he started dabbling with all sorts of experiments. He was on the 3rd floor and massive explosion. So they put him up to the 6th floor where he could do less damage. But he would do things like gargle with liquid oxygen and then blow it through a lit cigarette. You know, he was great fun. And I was working with him.
Dangerous to be around.
He was honestly on the next time you're here, I'll let you read his obituary, because Bill Griffiths wrote his obituary, and it's just hilarious. You know, even down to the poisonous snakes he kept at home, and stuff like that. He was a good friend of Christine Keeler. You know, he was an extraordinary guy, and I was working with him with a chemical, 0.5 gram of which will kill you.
Oh my God!
And you can absorb it through the skin and stuff like that, and it's cumulative, so you don't even need 0.5 gram in one go.
Yeah.
And it was quite scary, actually, because one of the signs of it, that it's a chemical, you'll have heard it sometimes talked about, maybe with some of the poisonings that when we talk about Russian dissidents and things like that. It's a chemical called thallium.
Yep.
And one of the signs of thallium poisoning is your hair starts to fall out. And of course, it was thinning a bit at the time, and it was quite worrying, really. But had I stayed on, I'd have done a PhD with Dennis, and that was the plan. Sadly, actually, Dennis became ill while I was training for ministry, and he then and there appointed me his sort of spiritual counsellor, which meant I could go and visit him in Westminster Hospital anytime I wanted. It was extraordinary.
Bless him.
He was a great guy. Yeah. That was interesting. The last conversation I had with him, he had a former student there who was working for L'Oreal at the time, and they'd just come out with a wash and go. And Dennis was fascinated.
Wash and go. What? Yeah. What, like a shampoo?
Shampoo, yeah. Yeah, but it's brilliant.
Wash and go.
That was because
is that what it was called?
It was called. Do they not do wash and go ananymore?
Is that what it was called?
It was called wash and go.
I thought that was just the way you said shampoo.
No, it was called
wash and go.
Because the amazing thing about this shampoo, which got Dennis really excited, was if it's a detergent, and Dennis used Fairy Liquid in his hair, so he just used straight detergent. If he uses, well, he didn't have much hair, bless him.
Well, I'm not surprised, bearing in mind he used Fairy.
But
oh, bless Dennis.
What a detergent does is just washes out the grease from your hair.
Yep.
But what wash and go does is it leaves your hair soft. It leaves it with a kind of greasiness to it, if you like.
Isn't that shampoo?
Well, yeah, but that's quite clever. So a lot of shampoos now, a lot of single-use shampoos, shampoos and conditioners use the same technology, and it's really clever because you've got two things that work against each other in the same thing. And so Dennis was fascinated. How does it work? And it's silicone. So when your hair feels all soft, if you use one of these combined shampoo and conditioner, it's silicone that as the detergent washes out, the silicone drops into your hair.
It's just like coats your hair.
So it's just a kind of silicone in your hair.
Yeah.
But so the last conversation, you could talk about all sorts of stuff, but no. Dennis wanted to know how this shampoo worked and whether he should switch from Fairy Liquid to this shampoo. That was, typical kind of. But he was great. And I really miss Dennis. I miss the kind of supping whiskey from a chemical beaker. Heaven knows what had been in it before.
My word!
While we eat mince pies that he's warmed up in the glass drying oven, and he was just lovely, absolute star. But actually, what happened? Sorry, this has turned into a really long story. But it's good. Dennis gets the plaudits. He was a great guy.
He sounds awesome. He sounds great.
Oh, brilliant. That's why his photo hangs above my desk.
Yeah.
But after my first year at university, I did two things that just you know, sometimes you do things and they sort of nudge your life a bit. And one of the things was that I went to hear Jackie Pullinger speak.
Wow, that's cool.
She is, I think, among the most terrifying people I've ever met.
Really?
Yeah. I left that talk. It was a talk called Soft Hearts and Hard Feet. She said, we need soft hearts and hard feet, and our problem is we have hard hearts and soft feet.
Yeah.
It was the same talk, actually, that the Archbishop of Canterbury was at, and I think had a profound effect on his life as well. And it was an amazing talk. And she talked about, you know, some of the work that she'd done in Hong Kong and things like that.
Yeah.
And she said about the kind of excuses we have for not following God. And, you know, if we're married or if we've got children and stuff like that. And she said, you know, don't you think God, you know, isn't aware of the fact that you're married and stuff like that? You know, they're not reasons enough. And it was just no holes barred. That's it. You've got to serve God. And that's, you know, there's no two ways around it. And I remember my legs were shaking as I came back, and it really convicted me. Yeah. I knew I had to do something, having heard that talk. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I did at the end of my first year was, back in those days, the Methodist Church used to have an annual mission.
Yeah.
And they would go off. This was in the days before Share Jesus, but it was Rob Frost and the division of the Home Missions Division, and they would run this. You know, I think we went to Yorkshire and Humberside to in little teams to work along chapels and work with chapels and to tell people about Jesus. And I went with all the kind of naive enthusiasm of a kind of, you know, 18, 19-year-old. And it was really interesting. The chapel we went to had a vote as to whether they wanted a mission team, and it had passed by about one vote, I think. The chapel committee was split on the decision, and then most of the people who'd supported the vote weren't there during the mission. So it was quite interesting. It was quite a challenge. But actually, people started saying to me things like, you know, have you considered working full time for God and stuff like that? And I'd say, no, I'm going to be a scientist. You know, that's what I'm going to do. And then during my second year at university, just some of the things that had been important to me became less important, and other things became more. The idea of spending the rest of my life, which I didn't think was going to be a very long life, the average life expectancy of an organic chemist in those days was about 46.
Because of what you worked with?
Because of all the dodgy chemicals.
Yeah.
So it might not have been a long life, but the idea of spending what life I had with maybe one or two other people in a laboratory, and then, you know, whoever you spend the night with in the bar, because they're heavy drinkers, chemists. That was about it, you know. And I thought that doesn't sound right. Mm. And so at the end of my my second year, I really faced a choice. I didn't know what to do, and so I said to God, I will do whatever you want, as long as I know what it is. I had three really interesting conversations. So the first was that I thought I better I decided to do some voluntary work for a year. I thought that would be a good way to kind of, you know, don't go straight on to do the PhD, do some voluntary work, get your head together. Yeah. And I was exploring possibly doing it with the George Muller Foundation in Bristol. So I went back and I thought, I better sit down with my mother and kind of tell her I might not be, you know, I might still being a drain on the family resources, really, because I might have to stay there and not earn much and stuff like that. So I sort of sat down and I said, well, I'm not sure if chemistry is the thing I'm going to do for all of my life. And she said, well, why don't you take a year out and do some voluntary work? And I thought, well, this conversation is going quite easy, isn't it? And she said, but you know what I see you doing, don't you? And I said, what's that? And she said, I see you becoming a vicar. And I thought, I mean, this was not heard of in my family, you know. Yeah. My brother was a telecoms engineer, you know. I mean, this was not the kind of stuff my family did. So I'm there thinking, blimey. I went to a Methodist church at the time as well. There was a lovely guy there called David. So I thought, right, I'll go and have a chat to him. Didn't want to tell him what it was about because you know how it is. It's a bit funny in those early stages. So I said, oh, can I come have a chat to you? And he said, yeah. So he took me into his office and he said, I know exactly why you've come. Gave me all this stuff about going into the ministry.
Weird, isn't it?
This is just getting a bit freaky. Yeah. And then we went to see my granddad. My granddad lived in Malvern. He'd been appointed during the war by C.P. Snow, Sir Charles Snow, to work at the radar research place in Malvern. Yeah. And he'd ended up as chief scientific officer, but he'd never been to university. And he'd done that all, amazing kind of career. And the fact that I was at university studying chemistry, he could not have been more proud. I thought he's going to be gutted if I leave all that behind. And we were having a conversation. He just turned around to me and he said, you ought to go into the church. And those 3 conversations happened within 2 weeks of me saying to God, I'll do whatever you want, as long as I know what it is. Yeah. So then I started, pursuing it, decided that the Church of England was the right place to go to, and started those meetings, including with the Bishop of Tewkesbury. And then I was 20 when I went to my selection conference.
I still can't get over that. I don't know how you did that. 20.
20, yeah.
That is amazing. Like I don't know how I'd have coped at 20.
I'd held off getting into a serious relationship until I knew what I was, what I was about. So at the Easter, my selection conference was over the Easter. Mm-hmm. And then in May, I got together with Sally. The following year, we were engaged, and we had to go off and see my director of ordinands, the person in charge of the training, to kind of get his permission to get married, which is quite a laugh. So yeah, Sally came all the way out to the other side of Gloucester to see Canon Ivor Davis, who was lovely. And she was, again, you're kind of worried, what's this kind of canon of the cathedral in Gloucester, going to be like? And he comes out with a zip-up cardigan and a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. And he said to Sally, oh, what do you think about being a parson's wife? And Sally said, well, it depends on the parson. And then he said, that's the right answer. And that was it. We'd gone all the way down to Gloucester for that conversation. And then, it's been brilliant to have sort of, that companionship, to have Sally on board right the way through, really. So
you've journeyed through it together.
She's a priest now as well, so she's been through the selection and training and everything else as well. So
yes, and she
has to swear an oath of allegiance to me,
What did you do the ordination?
No. But Sally has to, when she's licensed anywhere.
Oh, because she's her bishop.
In my area, she has to swear an oath of allegiance to me. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, bless her. It's all right, Sally. We've got your back. Well, I thought I'd ask you a really, really, really deep question to finish. Right.
Not about Love Island, is it?
No, but are you watching this series?
No. But my daughter is, my younger daughter.
You're not watching it with her this year?
She's just been staying with my in-laws. So she's got my in-laws, my father-in-law is nearly 80, and his wife, watching Love Island now. So
that's fantastic. She got you watching it one year.
She did. She did. So I still have my Love Island water bottle, actually, that says Bishop.
What, Bishop Roger on yours? That's hilarious.
On the side, yeah.
I've got mine, yeah. Well, next meeting that we actually have in person, we'll have to turn up with matching water bottles.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah. I'm in for that. I'm here for this. They've changed them this year. The water bottles are different. Yeah, but they're not. They're not good.
I've just taken mine to the gym, actually.
Oh, There you go, you see.
They
Yours
probably
is-
look at me thinking, when was he on Love Island
it was series 2. Series 2.
then?
Right. If you
Yeah.
had to fight
Yep.
one horse-sized duck or
Horse size.
horse-sized, like a horse, galloping horse,
Yep.
or so one horse-sized duck
Yeah.
or 20 duck-sized horses. What would you choose and why?
And I've got to fight them.
You've got to win. Yeah, it's like
I've got to win.
yeah. I don't know. Like you've got to be the last one standing.
Oh. It would be the 20. Yeah.
The 20. I know you're vegan. I don't mean any animals get harmed at all.
All right.
No,
Okay.
nothing like that. It's just, if hypothetically, if you had to take on, so the 20.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah. Can you imagine a horse-sized duck? Its beak. I mean, one peck and you're done for, aren't you? I mean, it's got you. And its legs. I mean,
It would only have 2 legs though, not 4.
Yeah, but it was still. I mean, ducks are pretty fierce things.
But then if you have 20 duck-sized horses, it's a lot to keep an eye on, isn't it?
It is, but they are only duck-sized. And you could put a little bit and bridle on each one. 20 bits of string. That's it. You're done. Job done. They could be quite useful as well.
To be fair, it could be quite useful. Yeah,
Well, that's you a question then. And it is a question. It is a deep question. It's a question that I got asked when
oh no!
when I was on my selection conference.
Oh great! I've already been through.
And they said to me, if you had one sermon, you could only preach one sermon. What would you say? Don't say that.
What?
That.
Bark. Yeah.
So you got one sermon.
Yeah.
And you chance to preach one sermon. The whole world is holding its breath. What's your message?
I think that we live in a world where there's a lot of emptiness and a lot of feelings of despair. And actually, there is more. There is more than what the world can give us. There's more than what these places that we look for, and we're never satisfied. But actually, in the gospel, there is hope. And we live in quite a hopeless world, but in Jesus there is hope. And I think for me, that's something that's got me through times where I've felt despair. Everyone does it like, I don't know, you think you're going to be able to sort your life out by like getting this, I don't know, product or whatever, and like sorting things out, and it lasts for a slight time, and then you're like, it's not lasting, it's not sustainable. Actually, the only thing that I've ever found sustainable and true hope in is in Jesus. And so, yeah, I think it would be something along those lines. I don't know, I don't know, maybe that's not good. Maybe that's not a good one.
Oh, I think that's excellent. I love that. Because actually, you're right. We look in all the wrong places.
Yeah, we do. We look in everything wrong.
And actually, just to say, don't look there.
Yeah.
Fame isn't going to do it for you. There's an addiction to the prospect of fame at the moment. Fame is not going to do it for you.
No.
Money isn't going to do it for you.
No.
None of that stuff. But actually in Jesus, we find something that satisfies all that sense in us of what we need. and more than that, when we then align ourselves with Jesus, we discover a life that is just boundless in all that it offers. Have you seen Shawshank Redemption?
Do you know what? I haven't.
Oh no,
I need to see that film. It's one of my dad's favorite films, and I just haven't seen it.
You need to see it. There's a beautiful moment there where Andy takes this record player and he broadcasts Mozart over the prison PA system, and they break the door down and they take him, and he has to serve 2 weeks in solitary confinement for this. And then he joins his mates back at back in the kind of the dinner hall, and he's having his dinner with the rest of them, and they say, well, was it worth it? Was it worth 2 weeks in solitary confinement to pull off a stunt like that? And he says, well, it was the easiest time I ever spent. And they said, rubbish. And he said, well, I had Mr. Mozart to keep me company. And they misunderstand. They think they've let him take the record player into solitary confinement. And he says, no. He was here and here, and that's the beautiful thing about music. They can't take it away from you. And then he turns to his mate Red and he says, haven't you felt that way about music? And Red says, well, I played a mean harmonica as a younger man. He said, lost my taste for it on the inside. And the
accent.
And then I was
priceless.
And then Red Andy says, but here's where you need it the most. You need it so you don't forget that there are places in this world not made out of grey stone, that there's something inside of us that they can never take away, and that's hope. And there's a lovely bit as the film goes on, you realize that not only did Red lose his taste for the harmonica, he's forgotten how to play it, which is a beautiful kind of metaphor for having lost hope. Yeah. And Andy teaches him how to play the harmonica again. And I think that's our job. I think our job, not literally to teach people to play the harmonica again, God forbid, but actually to rekindle that hope in others.
Yeah.
Because here's where we need it the most, and we need it because the world that is presented to us is not all that there is. No. And there is something that is so much better. And if we can get people to see that, then their lives will be transformed. So you need to preach that sermon. That'll be awesome. I'm looking forward to that. I'm still looking forward to the day when we ordain you.
Oh no!
Getting nearer and nearer.
It's only 2 years.
I know.
Oh,
and that means in less than a year we will be having conversations about where you are to serve your curacy.
I know, that's crazy.
It's brilliant. It's going to be
exciting.
Yeah,
it's exciting.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's been a whole year of training online.
Yep, online. Well, God, can you imagine the chaos when they get all you fleshy pals together, though?
It's going to be madness.
No hip flasks. When you're not isolating anymore, Charlie, pop round. I've got a fire pit now.
What?
We
a proper one?
A proper one. Yeah, we can sit round a fire pit and we can,
Oh, that would be good. Yes. And see your dogs as well.
Absolutely.
Bless them. Well, thank you so much for joining me and helping me with this video. And
brilliant. Well, best of luck with the edit.
We're going to have a massive outtake reel. Oh, thank you so much.
Well, it's good to see you, Charlie.
And you. Take care.
Cheers.